Listen to me. If you're waiting for confidence to arrive before you change your life, you're going to be waiting forever. Courage does not come after clarity. It comes before it. And if you want to reinvent yourself in 2026, this is where it begins. Here's the truth most people avoid. Reinvention starts the moment you're willing to be seen without armor, not perfect, not polished, not ready, just real. We've been taught that vulnerability is weakness, that showing uncertainty will make us small. But I've spent my life studying courage, and I can tell you this with my whole heart. Vulnerability is the birthplace of every meaningful transformation. You don't wake up one morning as a new version of yourself. You choose it. You choose it the moment you say, I don't want to live numb anymore. You choose it when you stop performing for approval and start listening to your own truth. Reinvention doesn't ask for confidence. It asks for honesty. If you're exhausted, good. That means the old way is dying. If you're scared, good. That means you're standing at the edge of something real. The bravest people I know didn't have a plan. They had a willingness to feel discomfort, a willingness to disappoint others, a willingness to let go of who they were praised for being. In 2026, stop asking, what will people think, and start asking, what is this costing me? Because every time you silence yourself, every time you shrink to stay safe, you pay with your joy, your creativity, your aliveness. Let me say this clearly, you cannot reinvent yourself while clinging to who you used to be for survival. That version of you. It wasn't wrong. It was protective. It learned how to cope, how to stay accepted, how to avoid pain. But survival skills are not the same as living skills. And if you don't release them, they will quietly suffocate the future you're trying to build. Here's what most people miss: growth feels like betrayal. Betrayal of your past, your family, your culture, your old identity. You start to feel guilty for wanting more, for wanting different. But listen to me, outgrowing a life is not disloyalty. It's evolution. Reinvention in 2026 will require grief. Yes, grief. You will grieve the version of you who tried so hard. You will grieve relationships that only worked when you stayed small. You will grieve dreams that were never yours to begin with. And that grief, it's not a sign you're failing. It's proof you're telling the truth. We like clean transformations, before and after stories tied with a bow. But real change is messy. It's lonely. It's filled with moments where you ask, who am I now if I'm not who I was? And the answer is uncomfortable but powerful you are becoming. In this season, don't rush to define yourself. Don't force certainty. Let yourself be in the in-between. That space where the old no longer fits and the new hasn't fully formed yet, that's not confusion. That's creation. If you want to become someone new in 2026, you must have the courage to let an old identity die with dignity. Think it. Release it. And walk forward lighter, freer, and finally honest. Here's a hard truth, and I want you to feel it, not just hear it. You cannot heal and hustle at the same time. Reinventing yourself in 2026 is not about doing more, pushing harder, or proving your worth through exhaustion. That old story has already taken enough from you. We live in a culture that celebrates burnout as bravery. We clap for people who run themselves into the ground and call it ambition. But let me tell you what I've learned. When you ignore your pain, it doesn't disappear. It drives your behavior from the shadows. It shows up as overworking, people-pleasing, perfectionism, and the constant fear of not being enough. Healing is not passive. It's not soft in the way people assume. Healing is one of the most courageous things you will ever do because it requires you to slow down and actually feel. To sit with emotions you've been outrunning for years. To ask yourself, what am I numbing? What am I avoiding? What am I afraid to face? Reinvention demands that you stop using productivity as anesthesia. You are not lazy for needing rest. You are not weak for needing boundaries. You are human. And the moment you honor that humanity, something powerful shifts. You stop building a life on self-abandonment. In 2026, your breakthrough will not come from grinding harder. It will come from listening deeper, from choosing alignment over applause, from allowing your nervous system to feel safe enough to imagine something new. You don't need to earn rest. You don't need to justify healing. The strongest version of you is not the one who never breaks. It's the one who finally stops pretending they're not hurting and chooses wholeness over performance. Let me tell you something that may shake you. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks. And if you want to reinvent yourself in 2026, you must decide who gets a key. Because every time you say yes when your body is screaming no, you abandon yourself just a little more. We confuse boundaries with selfishness because we were taught that being good means being available, agreeable, endlessly accommodating. But that version of goodness is rooted in fear, fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being seen as difficult. And fear is a terrible architect for a life, if you're trying to rebuild. Here's the truth, people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will call your boundaries cruelty. Let that sink in. When you start honoring your limits, you will feel resistance, not because you're wrong, but because the rules have changed. And that discomfort, it's the sound of your integrity returning. Reinvention requires discernment. Not everyone deserves access to your energy, your time, your inner world. You can love people and still choose distance. You can be kind and still say no. You can be compassionate without betraying yourself. That's not coldness, that's self-respect. In 2026, stop negotiating your worth. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. A clear boundary is a radical act of self-trust. It says, I know what I need and I honor it. When you build your life around boundaries instead of burnout, something extraordinary happens. You stop living in reaction and start living in intention. And that is how a new version of you takes shape. You steady, grounded, and no longer available for what drains your soul. Let's talk about something we avoid because it scares us: belonging. Not fitting in, not being liked. True belonging. And here's the truth that changes everything. You don't belong by changing who you are. You belong by being who you are. Most people spend their lives shape-shifting. We read the room. We edit ourselves. We mute parts of our truth so we can stay connected. But connection built on self, betrayal, is not connection. It's loneliness with an audience. And that kind of loneliness cuts the deepest. If you're reinventing yourself in 2026, you must be willing to stand alone before you can truly belong. That means risking disapproval. That means letting people misunderstand you. That means choosing authenticity over acceptance. And yes, it's terrifying because we are wired for connection. But here's what I know for sure: you cannot feel at home in your life if you abandon yourself to stay invited. True belonging begins the moment you stop asking, will they accept me? And start asking, am I accepting myself? When you honor your values, speak your truth, and live in alignment, you send a powerful signal to yourself and to the world that you are no longer available for counterfeit connection. In this new season, some relationships will fall away. Let them. They were attached to an older version of you. Make room for the people who recognize you without explanation, who don't require you to shrink, who don't need you to perform to be loved. Belonging isn't something you chase in 2026. It's something you practice by standing firmly in who you are, even when your voice shakes. Here's what no one tells you about reinvention. Your emotions are not obstacles, they are instructions. And if you want to become someone new in 2026, you must stop fearing what you feel and start listening to it. We were taught to rank emotions. Happiness is good, anger is bad, sadness is weakness. But emotions don't work like that. They are data. They show you where your boundaries were crossed, where your values were honored, where your truth is being ignored. When you numb your feelings, you don't just numb pain, you numb clarity. Anger, for example, is often the bodyguard of your values. It shows up when something that matters to you has been violated. Sadness can signal what needs to be grieved and released. Fear often appears at the edge of growth, not danger. But if you silence these emotions, you lose your internal guidance system. Reinvention requires emotional literacy, the courage to name what you feel without judgment. To say, I'm overwhelmed, instead of pretending you're fine. To admit, I'm afraid, instead of calling it procrastination. This honesty is not indulgent, it's essential. In 2026, your power will come from responding rather than reacting. When you pause, feel, and choose intentionally, you stop living on autopilot. You stop repeating patterns you swore you'd outgrow. Your emotions are not trying to sabotage you. They are trying to protect you, guide you, and tell you the truth. Listen carefully, because the more fluent you become in your emotional language, the more confidently you can build a life that actually fits who you are becoming. Let me be honest with you, self-trust is the foundation of reinvention. And most people don't lack confidence, they lack a relationship with themselves. They've broken so many promises to their own needs, instincts, and values that they no longer believe their inner voice deserves authority. Think about it. Every time you ignored your intuition to keep the peace. Every time you said, it's fine, when it wasn't. Every time you knew the truth but chose comfort instead. Those moments didn't just create pain. They quietly eroded trust with yourself. And without self-trust, every decision feels shaky, every risk feels terrifying, every step forward feels like a gamble. Rebuilding yourself in 2026 means rebuilding credibility with you, not through grand gestures, but through small, brave acts of integrity. You do what you say you'll do. You rest when you're exhausted. You walk away when something violates your values. You stop outsourcing your worth to other people's opinions. Self-trust grows when your actions align with your truth. And here's the powerful part. It doesn't require certainty. It requires courage. You don't need to know how everything will turn out. You just need to know that you will show up for yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. When you trust yourself, you stop begging for reassurance, you stop over-explaining, you stop living in constant self-doubt, you become grounded, calm, steady, not because life is easy, but because you know you can handle what comes. In 2026, let your greatest commitment be this: I will not abandon myself again. From that promise, a stronger, braver, more authentic version of you will rise quietly, powerfully, and unshakably. Here's the quiet truth about reinvention. Shame is the heaviest thing you will ever try to carry into a new life. And if you don't put it down, it will decide who you become without your consent. Shame tells you that who you are is wrong, broken, unworthy of love. It whispers, if people really knew you, they'd leave. And so you hide, you polish, you pretend. But listen to me carefully. Shame thrives in secrecy, silence, and judgment. And the moment you bring it into the light with compassion, it loses its grip. Reinventing yourself in 2026 means separating who you are from what you've done. You are not your mistakes. You are not your past failures. You are not the worst thing that ever happened to you. Those experiences shaped you, yes, but they do not define your capacity for growth, love, or courage. When you speak your truth with someone safe, when you replace self-criticism with curiosity, when you choose empathy over punishment, something profound happens. You reclaim your humanity. And there is nothing more powerful than a human who refuses to hate themselves into change. Shame says, be perfect or be rejected. Courage says, be real and be free. In this next chapter, you don't need to prove your worth. You need to believe in it enough to stop tearing yourself apart. In 2026, your freedom will not come from becoming flawless. It will come from embracing yourself fully, honestly, and without apology. Because the moment shame no longer controls you, you become unstoppable. Here's something that will change the way you approach everything. Creativity is not a luxury. It is a survival skill for reinvention. And most people sabotage themselves because they confuse creativity with talent. It isn't about painting a masterpiece, writing a novel, or being good enough. Creativity is about making something new from what already exists inside you, your thoughts, your experiences, your pain, your joy. When you're reinventing yourself in 2026, creativity becomes your compass. It's the bridge between who you were and who you want to become. But here's the catch. It requires courage. It requires stepping into the unknown, letting ideas be ugly at first, letting failure be your teacher rather than your enemy. The people who never create are often the ones who fear the judgment of others or the fear of their own inadequacy. Listen carefully. You cannot become new by following old instructions. You have to experiment. You have to risk. You have to give yourself permission to fail. Every idea that seems too bold, every vision that feels too big, every risk that scares your stomach, those are the signals that you are on the edge of transformation. Reinvention requires you to reclaim your imagination, to treat it as sacred, to ask yourself, what do I want my life to feel like? How can I bring more joy, meaning an impact into it? And then here's the key, actually do something with that answer. Even if it's small, even if it's messy, even if no one notices. In 2026, creativity is your superpower. It is your declaration that you will not be confined by old patterns, old fears, or old expectations. It is your birthright to imagine, to risk, and to rebuild yourself in ways the world hasn't seen yet. And now, the final truth I want you to carry into 2026. Reinvention is not a destination. It is a practice. It is not a moment when everything magically falls into place. It is a series of brave choices, messy experiments, and small acts of courage repeated over and over until they become your new identity. You will stumble, you will doubt yourself, you will question if it's worth it, and you will feel fear because transformation always lies on the edge of discomfort. But here's the thing, discomfort is the signal you are moving in the right direction. It is proof that you are leaving old safety behind and stepping into something larger than yourself. Remember this, no one can do it for you. No one can hand you a blueprint. Reinvention requires that you take full ownership of your life, that you honor your grief, your mistakes, your emotions, your dreams, that you show up when it's uncomfortable, that you stay committed when the world doesn't notice. In 2026, choose courage over certainty, choose alignment over approval, choose self-trust over self-doubt, choose creativity over complacency, choose to feel, to act, to speak, and to love with full honesty. Each choice is a brick in the foundation of the person you are becoming. And here is the most important thing. You are not late, you are not behind, and you are not too broken to start anew. Reinvention is available in every moment, in every breath, in every decision you make. Today, right now, you can step into the life you were meant to live, and nothing, not fear, not shame, not doubt can stop you. This is your time. Become who you were meant to be.